In the high-stakes courtroom drama that unfolded this week, Nina Reeves found herself standing at the center of a crushing decision. With the weight of her actions hanging over her, she pled guilty to making false statements to the authorities, a move that would have severe consequences. What appeared to be a simple legal maneuver was anything but, for Nina had far more at stake than a courtroom verdict. Her daughter, Willow Tate, was embroiled in the chaos that Nina had unwittingly helped create, and now Nina faced a dilemma of unimaginable proportions. Could she stand by her daughter, or would she choose the lesser of two evils and risk losing her forever? The root of Nina's desperation stemmed from her need to protect Willow at all costs. In a moment of panic and fear, she concocted an alibi to shield Willow, hoping to keep her from being implicated in the shooting of Drew Cain. But what if, in her turmoil, Nina was wrong? What if Willow had been the one to pull the trigger? And what if, by defending her, Nina had only exacerbated her daughter's plight? It was a question that haunted Nina, and as the walls of the courtroom closed in, she was faced with the bitter reality. Either she took the fall for Willow or allowed her to fight this battle alone, something Nina couldn't bear. As Drew Cain called out Nina's name from across the room, it became painfully clear to Nina that her bond with Willow, the one thread that had held her together for so long, was now severed. Drew had always been the voice of reason, the one who called out the truth even when Nina refused to hear it. And now, as Drew stood there, the weight of his presence was a reminder that Nina had just lost her daughter, again. There he was, not just as a father figure to her daughter, but as a constant presence in her life. This time, Drew wasn't offering comfort, he was silently reminding Nina of every wrong decision she had made. Nina had tried, desperately, to keep Drew away from Willow. For over a year, she'd fought against their relationship, urging her daughter to see the man for who he truly was, a man who had used power and influence for his own gain. It was a campaign of manipulation, designed to make Willow believe that Drew wasn't the knight in shining armor everyone thought he was. But Willow had refused to listen. Despite Nina's best efforts, she couldn't erase the picture of Drew as a caring, dependable figure in Willow's life. And as much as Nina tried to paint Drew in a negative light, Willow had always seen the best in him. Now, the tables had turned. In the midst of Nina's betrayal, Willow had drawn a line in the sand. She was done listening to her mother, and the consequences of Nina's actions were coming to fruition. There was no longer a safe space for Nina to hide, no alibi to offer. She had pushed her daughter too far, and in doing so, she had driven a wedge between them that would be nearly impossible to mend. Willow now stood firm, believing in Drew and what he represented, and Nina was powerless to stop it. The mother-daughter bond that had once been unbreakable was now fractured, and Nina had no one to blame but herself. But all hope wasn't lost, for Michael Corinthos, Willow's estranged husband, had arrived, seemingly at the right moment. Michael, who had been largely absent from Willow's life, had managed to insert himself into the situation in an unexpected way. It seemed that Michael had one last card to play, his children. When he confronted Willow in Elizabeth Baldwin's living room, he reminded her of the bond they shared through their children. It was a moment that seemed to hit Willow hard. She had longed for a connection with her children, and hearing Michael express that need was music to her ears. But was Michael truly offering a path to reconciliation, or was he simply playing on Willow's deepest emotions to get what he wanted? The real question remained, could Michael's influence over Willow be enough to drive a wedge between her and Drew? Could he manipulate her into betraying Drew for the sake of reuniting with their children? There was certainly room for doubt, but Michael had the advantage of knowing how deeply Willow's desire for motherhood ran. Would she betray Drew in an instant if it meant healing her fractured family? It was a tempting thought, one that could tip the scales in Michael's favor. However, there was another force at play: Harrison Chase. Chase, the detective with a history of conflicted relationships, had made it clear that he wasn't going to let Michael have things his way. The tension between Chase and Michael was palpable, especially after their conversation in the sauna. Chase, though still deeply connected to his ex-wife Willow, was hesitant to let go of the past. His loyalty to her was unwavering, and he viewed any threat to her happiness as a personal attack. Chase had every intention of protecting Willow, but the question lingered: would his protective instincts only make matters worse? Chase's role in all of this was complicated. He still held on to feelings for Willow, and his desire to defend her could put him in direct conflict with Michael. Could Chase's loyalty to Willow push him to take extreme measures? Was there a possibility that his unresolved feelings would cause him to risk his marriage with Brooke to be with Willow? As the situation escalated, it seemed more likely that Chase's deep-rooted connection to Willow could drive him to extreme actions that might just change the course of this tangled love triangle. In the end, Nina's position seemed hopeless. She had burned bridges with Willow and alienated those who had once been allies. But with Drew standing firm on one side and Michael and Chase positioning themselves on the other, it was unclear who would win Willow's heart. Was Willow's desire for family enough to drive her into Michael's arms, or would her loyalty to Drew be stronger than any pressure placed upon her? As the court case continued and the emotional stakes grew higher, it became evident that this battle was far from over. What would it take for Willow to make her choice? Could Nina salvage any part of her relationship with her daughter? Or would she be forced to watch as Willow's life continued without her, forever lost to the very people she had tried to protect her from? The coming days promised even more twists, more betrayals, and the ultimate question: who would end up with Willow's heart and loyalty in the end? As the battle for Willow's future raged on, there were no clear answers, just the looming shadow of a broken family, forever changed by the decisions made in the courtroom and beyond.